Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Come on, let's shake it off a little bit. It's good to be with you all. Before I kick off this morning, I want you to turn to your neighbor. I want you to share with yourselves and share with each other, what is it about this time of year? What is the thing that reminds you most about December and Christmas? Is it the food? Is it the family? Is it the traffic? Just quickly, share amongst each other. What is it about this time of year that rings true for you? Okay, shout them out. What is it? Family. What else? Jesus. I mean, yes, obvious. Jesus. What else? Food. Friends. Volleys. Traffic. Watermelon. I was thinking, like, we used to play a lot of pool cricket back when we were kids and stuff. Pool cricket is something that comes to mind for me. Way too much food though, right? You just eat. It's like December kicks in and suddenly you just like gain like 10 kilos of who knows what, and you're heavier but better for it. Your stomach may be full, your heart might be struggling, but you're happy. But I love this time of year. It represents so much for us as humanity, not just the birth of Jesus. Yes, that is the thing about today. That is the thing we're celebrating today. But it also represents something else, that end of year, start of year, that new year feeling where there's just this unanimous decision that we get to reset, right? We get to start again. We get to have another bash at it, have another go. And I don't know where each of you are at, but I imagine in this room today that we probably have a variety of people who are feeling maybe a little bit hopeful, maybe a little bit optimistic about what's in the future. Maybe you're that person that no matter what happens, you believe the best. No matter what's going on, you're always the most optimistic, joyful, big energy in the room. Nothing gets you down. Like you see the problem and you go, we're going to solve it. You see the issue and you think we're going to get over it. Nothing gets you down. And maybe you're ending this year on a bit of that note. There's a lot of hope in you. And maybe on the other side of the spectrum, this year hasn't quite turned out the way you thought it would have. Maybe you've gone through a bit of a hammering in business. Maybe financially it's just been tough on all fronts. Maybe there's some personal stuff you're dealing with. Like, I don't know your individual story. But this idea of having hope, it's hard, right? You're tired, you're a bit worn out. You just want to put your head down to rest and sleep for a couple days and try and muster up some energy to kick off 2026 on January 1st. Or maybe you're a realist. Maybe you're right in between. Maybe you're the Switzerland. You're neutral. You're optimistic when it happens. You're joyful when there's a reason to be. Right? You're the realist. You operate on facts. You operate on information that you give your emotion towards that. But here's what I want to say this morning is that I think all of us have some level of hope. I think regardless of where you find yourself today, you're hoping for something, whether you know it or not. You're hoping that today on that Christmas table, on that lunch table, there's more than one meat. You're hoping that, maybe for some of you, you're hoping there's more than one salad. I love South Africans when it comes to food, right? Like every year we talk about the Christmas lunch, and it's so predictable. We're going to eat the same thing. There's going to be lamb, there's going to be chicken, there's going to be gammon, and then somehow it's like 3 meats is not enough. And I'm always wondering, like, how is 3 meats not enough? Like, it's got to be enough. You don't need more carnivorous food in our lives. We've got 3 options here. But then somehow, like us as South Africans, what do? We throw bacon into our salads. We find any way to include bacon. I mean, don't worry, bacon is the gift to humanity, second to Jesus. But there's no need to put it in a salad, right? But maybe some of you, you're just hoping for a good meal today. You're just hoping for a special time with family. You're just hoping to get some rest. Maybe you're hoping for something. But I pray this morning that everyone here can find it in their hearts to hope for something. See, I think Christmas is a time of year where hope comes alive. Christmas is amazing because it's a reminder to never lose hope. God always has a plan. Jesus' birth is evidence that hope is worth having. And Sia shared a little bit earlier, but I want to just share a bit about the time prior to Jesus' birth, because I don't know if many of you know this, but it was not the best time in the world to be living through. And so I want to get a bit of context. And if we start all the way from the beginning in the book of Exodus, there's a group of people, the Israelites, God's chosen people, who get rescued out of Egypt, out of slavery, and they are led by Moses. So God frees them through Moses, through a variety of miracles, and he leads them through the desert and through this land as a fire and as a cloud. And eventually, they take the long way around, but eventually, God's people land up in the promised land. And then from there, what happens is we move through this book called Judges, and this is kind of where the story begins to unravel just a little bit. They lack some faithful leadership. They become super independent. Truth becomes very subjective. They start doing what they see as right in their own eyes. They start living by what they want and what they desire and stop living for the glory of God. And we carry on moving through this story and following along. And eventually what happens is the Israelites plead to God for a king. They're looking at these other nations. And they're going, look how they run. Look how they do things. Like they have a king. We need a king. And God kind of goes back and forth with them and says, no, you don't need a king. You need to be obedient to me. You need to trust me. You're looking for a leader, but you need to trust me. You're looking for someone to fix your problems for you, but you need to put your faith in me. And eventually what happens is God gives them kings. And first we see Saul, and then we see David, who's known as the man after God's own heart, and then eventually we come to Solomon. And Solomon is the one who builds the temple where God's presence can inhabit and live in. And they see beautiful favor. They have the season of peace. But eventually, in typical human fashions, things start falling apart again. And the kingdom fractures, and we find ourselves in this book in 1 and 2 Kings, where corruption, idolatry, injustice begins to spread. And in the midst of this downfall, in the midst of things kind of spiraling a bit out of control, we start to see some prophecies coming to light. So things are going badly, but God is still moving. Things aren't going the way they thought, but God is still speaking. And in the midst of this kind of like period in 1 and 2 Kings, there's this prophet Isaiah, and he prophesies something in Isaiah 9 that is really important for today's message. And I want to read it for you. And it starts by saying this: the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, as warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And so we see this prophecy come into this time. And you must know this prophecy about Jesus is 700 years prior to his birth. I mean, I don't know about you, but that is a pretty long time. To hold a word, to navigate, to have faith in, to hope in, 700 years. And unfortunately, what happens is things only get worse during this time. In 2 Kings, we see Jerusalem fall, we see the temple destroyed, and all the people are carried out into are exiled in what we call the Babylonian exile. And they're exiled. But eventually, in Ezra and Nehemiah, what happens is the people return to the city, they start to rebuild it, but it's almost a season of rebuilding and not full restoration. Because we don't quite see God's presence manifest in the same way. The temple doesn't really live up to the standards of the previous one that Solomon built. And then what happens? We're going to Malachi, and this is where things go dark. After the book of Malachi, 400 years of time exists where nothing happens. Nothing. God doesn't speak. The people feel lost. They wander astray. This is when we see Persian and Greek and Roman rule and gods like Zeus and those ideas and human creations and false idols come to life. But it's a debaucherous time. It's a sad time. It's a dark time. It's an evil time. 400 years, God's people, the Israelites, would have had to endure, waiting, holding on to, praying for, gripping onto that prophecy that Isaiah would have spoken 300 years before that. Now imagine that each 100 years, you basically consider that a generation is passing, and a generation is passing, and a generation is passing. And can you imagine living through something like that where God is so silent, you're not really sure what is happening? And in the beginning, you would have had families share testimonies and stories of God's miracles. And they would have told it to their children. And as those children grow up, they would have shared what they remembered. And then their children would have shared what they remembered. But eventually, time tells us that what would have happened is those testimonies probably would have disappeared. They would have dissolved. They would have kind of fallen into the trap of time and not been spoken about as much. But there would have been a faithful few that held on to this prophecy in Isaiah. And so they had to endure 400 years, and the only thing they held on to was that promise. Now, I want to talk about darkness for a little bit. I was around 15 years old, and we went on this trip with Ross, who's our lead elder. And we went on this trip where we were going to his parents' place in Zimbabwe. And before we got there, we decided to stop. It was myself and 3 other friends who were around the same age. We stopped at one of the guys' dad's farm. It was kind of on the border of Bulawayo there. And we stopped there. And this place was like every kid, every boy's dream. Like it was just this massive, massive mango and tomato farm. I mean, like acre after acre after acres of land. And it was just this adventure. They had quad bikes and motorbikes. And we would spend our days just getting onto a quad bike and riding out to the river and swimming. And we'd go into the tomato fields and we'd pick up these like frot tomatoes and have these wars where we'd go 2 versus 2 and throw these frot tomatoes at us. They also had ostriches on this farm. And we'd chase them on our quad bikes, dodging the stones that they're flicking up behind them, and just doing stuff that really, there were no rules or anything on the, we could just go out and have fun. I mean, it was truly like the most amazing experience. And at night, what we would do is we'd get 2 on each of the quad bikes. So someone was driving and someone was kind of holding this giant flashlight behind them. And we'd go out into the dirt roads, and then what we would do is we'd shine these flashlights on the road and look for these things called spring hares. Now, spring hares are like a tiny kangaroo. And what would happen is the moment you shone this torch on them, they'd get stunned, they'd go still, and you had this brief second where you could catch it. And so we'd shine the torch, and someone would jump off the quad bike, and we'd be diving in the gravel and the sand, and we'd grab this thing by its tail, and then we'd hold it up and like scream in victory and then let it go. And we built this kind of scoreboard of, who caught the most spring hares by the end of this holiday. Anyway, story goes on. We eventually get back into Ross's car. We cross the border. We land up in his parents' farm. And now this farm is not a tomato and a mango farm anymore. We're now in a Big 5 hunting registered like farm. Like this makes Shishlui and Umfolozi and Kruger look very tame. Because on the doorstep of our kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a resort, but on the place we're staying in was this river, and there's crocodiles and hippos, like within walking distance of where we're staying. I mean, we're 14, 15 years old. We're like, it's awesome, but we have no clue the reality of where we are. And the one morning I woke up actually, and I couldn't open my door to the dorm I was staying in, and I was bashing this door, and it was only opening about X much. And then I looked out the window and realized the hippo decided to sleep against our door. And there I am, this 14-year-old kid, just like hammering this hippo with this door. And so this place was wild, right? We went on this game drive in the evening. And it's Zimbabwe bush dark is dark. Like there is, the only light you have is the moon if it's out or the stars. And so we're on this game drive. And we come across a spring hare in the road. And just like instinct, this friend, Dane, and myself, we get out of this game car. And this light shining on the spring hare, and without even thinking, asking questions, doing anything, we jump out of the vehicle. We jump out of the vehicle and we start running after this thing. And it's like zero, like there's not much firing in our brains of where are you, what are you doing right now? But we run after this thing. And I remember we're chasing it down the road, and it ventures off, and eventually we go under this tree and over this bush and around this corner. And then without realizing it, suddenly we're We stop because there's nowhere to go, because we cannot see anymore. It's pitch black. And I mean, like so dark that if I did this with my hand, I could not see it. And all I can hear is the voice of my friend who's probably a couple meters away from me and the rustling of the leaves under my feet. I mean, that is the experience we were having. And suddenly, the adrenaline and the fun we were having very quickly turns to fear and trembling. Now, Ross, being Ross, thought it would be funny to not say anything in the car and to go quiet and to give us no symbol of hope whilst we puzzled out in the dark. But there we were, puzzling in the dark. And the reason I tell you the story is because I'm trying to connect you to this idea of darkness. You know, whilst we were out there, you're just hoping for a symbol of light. We were desperate for something to give us an indication of where we need to go, what we need to do, what direction we need to head in. And much like God's people, much like the Israelites during this time after Malachi, they would have found themselves begging and pleading for a symbol of hope. All they would have had is prophecies like the one we read in Isaiah, something to hold on to, some glimmer of hope potentially that maybe something's going to happen. Maybe something's going to give me a sense of direction or a sense of hope or a sense of light in the distance that I can begin to walk to. Maybe for you this morning or for people here this morning, you feel like you're in a bit of a season of darkness. You're stuck. You can't move. You can't see what's underneath you. You can't see your hand in front of you. And you're just trying to make out your steps. You're just trying to make sure that the step you take forward, you don't fumble over the furniture or you don't trip over something. You're just doing your absolute best to get through the darkness, to get through the season you might find yourselves in. And here's what I want to say is that our hearts, our souls, they yearn for light. They yearn for Jesus, church. We're not designed to live in the darkness. I hate to break it to you, but we are not bats. We do not have some special type of X-ray vision that can see in any condition. No, we are human form, but we are designed to operate and go about this life with a light, with something giving us a sense of direction, with something giving us a sense of hope, with something that we can hold on to when darkness does arrive. So I want to go back to my story. So we're out there, me and Dane, we're out there in this dark wilderness environment. And we're clenching each other's hands. We're clenching each other's hands. And I just remember saying to him, like, bro, don't let go. Please don't let go. Please don't let go of me. And it's like any form of weird physical discomfort you had with a guy when you were 14 is no longer an issue. It's like we will stay as close together as we can. And we're walking through, and I honestly think in that 5 minutes of being out there, that we probably only covered around 5 meters of distance because we were moving so slowly. But suddenly, at the corner of my eye, I see this glimmer. I see something through the brush. I see something that's not dark. And just behind this brush or bush or tree, I mean, I can't even tell you what it was this glimmer of light, was this little speck of hope in the distance. And I remember telling my friend about it, and suddenly all our fear, our loss, our lack of direction, we had something that we could point towards, something that we could aim towards, something that we could begin to walk towards. Friends, Jesus in our lives, and the reason why today is so important is because just as the Israelites would have felt, just as we felt out in the bush that many years ago, just as you may be feeling today, there may just be a glimmer of light in the distance for you to lock into and begin to walk towards. You see, the light was always there. It never went out. It may have been hiding behind something. It may have been distant, it may have been far away, but the light was always there. Maybe for you, the light is shining. Maybe Jesus has always been there and you know that. But you've got obstacles. Your vision is skewed. Your vision's impaired. You can't quite see him clearly because of pride or because of stuff in your life that you haven't quite worked out. But here's the good news, is the light shines regardless of how you live your life. Jesus shines regardless of what you do, will do, have done, or going to do. The light shines. We put obstacles in the way. We have obstacles in the way. We put stuff in the way of him. And maybe instead of a brush or a bush, the light of Jesus is standing behind a door to your heart and it is knocking. But you know, you go back to your house, it's load shedding. Touch wood. We don't want load shedding to come back. You go back into your house, you know Jesus is at the door of your heart, but you've got your generator with some diesel, you've got your lithium-ion batteries that can last a couple hours, you've got your solar panels, but here's the truth, guys. Is that you may have made plans to keep your life moving forward. You may think you have what it takes, but eventually stuff begins to run out. Eventually things begin to go dry. Eventually you'll hit a wall. Eventually you'll come to the place of realizing that Jesus, the one standing behind the door that you've kept distant for so long, he is the only semblance of hope in your life. He is the only light that will never go out. He is the only one that can bring light into your life. Because eventually the diesel is going to run out. The clouds are going to cover. The lithium-ion batteries are going to have nothing to charge them. Eventually your heart is going to ache for something bigger than the darkness this life presents. Eventually you're going to have to run towards Jesus and open that door. You see, church, Jesus is the light. Not me. Not Ross, not Ruth, not you, Jesus. In John 8, verse 12, he says this, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but have the light of life. And in John 12, he says this, I have come into this world as a light so that no one who believes in me shall stay in darkness. You see, what Jesus is saying here is that he's looking for obedience and belief. If you believe in me, you'll have light. If you will follow me, you will have light. And church, that's the greatest decision you'll ever make in your entire life, is whether you choose to let the light in and follow the light through the darkness. If there's one thing I know about this world, is that it is inconsistent. It does not give us what we need. It will go dark. Whether it's floods or riots or load shedding or political upheaval or financial challenges or family issues, whatever it is, there is darkness, which is why Jesus is our greatest hope, which is why Jesus is and will forever be the only light. He is the glimmer in the distance. Now we carry on with the story of us. Eventually, we start walking towards this light. We make it out of the brush and we get back to the car. And just like that sense of fear has turned now to a sense of relief. When we were lost, we feel like we have landed back home. Now, Jesus, being the glimmer of hope that he was, God started to move again after 400 years. And suddenly the glimmer started to appear. What happened was an angel appeared to someone called Zechariah. And Zechariah was a priest. He was a holy man. But the experience of angels and wonders and miracles was so rare that he was in so much fear of this angel that the angel said to him, do not fear. He had no idea what he was experiencing. This was a foreign, unheard of moment. But this angel tells him that you will give birth, you and your wife will give birth to someone called John. And John will begin to prepare the way for the Messiah, will begin to prepare people to receive Jesus, a glimmer of hope. And then again, this young teenage girl named Mary, an angel appears before her and says that you will give birth to the Messiah, a glimmer of hope. A light in the distance, but something to come. And then one more time, that angel appears to the shepherds in the field on the very day that Jesus was born. They fear, they're trembling, they're petrified for their lives as the power of this angel comes before them. But they say, today is the day when the Messiah has been given to you. Glimmer of hope. Suddenly, this feeling of Isaiah 9, the prophecies, the promises, the words we've heard, they're coming to life. You see, the world has started to receive the light again. The world has had an opportunity to receive hope. And what felt like it was distant, what felt like it was behind this brush, what felt like it was hundreds and hundreds of years away from ever happening, suddenly, in just a moment, in perfect timing, because God is perfect in the way He does things, Jesus is born. The hope of the world, the light of the world, the light in the darkness, He is born. I'm going to ask someone to come up from the worship team if they're around. And I want to close here this morning, but, I don't know where you find yourself at. And maybe this morning, your life, it's feeling a little bit like this. Maybe you feel like you have been stumbling, been wandering, been fumbling and tripping over obstacles for the last couple of years. Maybe you're tired, you're exhausted, you need rest. And here's what I want to say to you, is that this darkness may feel overwhelming, right? It may feel like there's no hope. It may feel like there's no sense of God in the midst of this. But the good news about Jesus is that He doesn't need anything from the darkness. He doesn't require anything of it. He doesn't need you to fight back on its behalf. This light here on stage, it may be small, but it shines independently. And Jesus shines independently, and Jesus works independently. And even regardless of this feeling of being in a very big room with a very small light, the promise and the hope you have is that there is a light shining. And if you're at the very back of this auditorium, I imagine you can hardly see what's on stage here. You may be distant from Jesus. Maybe you've never received Him into your life. You may feel like He is far from you. Or maybe you're in the front row and you know it's dark, but this light is close enough to give you a sense of direction, of warmth, of hope, restitution, redemption. Church, here's what I know about today. Today is a reminder to never give up on hope. That Jesus is the ultimate answer when times get dark. That Jesus came into the darkest part of the world when everyone had given up, when everyone had stopped dreaming of hoping, when it almost felt like we were too far gone. Jesus comes into this world and births new life. And today, this morning, Jesus wants to birth new life in every single person here. So won't you stand with me as I pray for us this morning? Thanks, Ben. With your eyes closed, and your heads bowed, I want to invite people this morning to receive Jesus into your life, to receive the hope, the light of the world that is Christ. And if something of this message is connected with you, if something of the Holy Spirit is tugging on your heart this morning, if you're done living in darkness, if you're done fumbling over the furniture in the dark because you cannot see what's in front of you, if you're done trying so hard that you're worn out, you are tired, you are exhausted, and you want Jesus into your heart, you're begging, you're pleading, you're going, God, I need you. I cannot do this on my own anymore. I am done fumbling in the dark. If that's you this morning, I want you to stick up your hand for me. There we go. Beautiful. And keep those hands raised this morning. I want you to pray this prayer in your heart with me. Jesus Christ, I receive you into my life. I thank you for your salvation. I thank you, Lord, that from this very day forth, I am fully redeemed. I am invited into a relationship with you. And that Jesus, you are now my light in the darkness, my light through the darkness, my light for the darkness. That Jesus, from this day forth, I am done doing things by my own strength. And from this day forth, God, I choose you every single day. I will follow you. I will be led by you. My life will be a reflection of you. But thank you, God, for redeeming me. Thank you for sending your Son to die on the cross for me. Thank you that He paid the ultimate price for me so that I can raise my hand today and receive Jesus into my heart. We thank you, Lord. And all God's people said, amen. Let's give a round of applause for the people that raised their hands. It's good news. Church, it's been so good being with you. Please stick around for a coffee, hang out, but have an amazing Christmas day. Don't eat too much food, and we'll see you again on the 4th of Jan. God bless.